The clock struck 12. An unearthly silence fell upon the station. From the black abyss of the tunnel, a train emerged. Its headlights cut through the darkness. The train was old. Its paint was peeling. It rattled and hissed as it came to a stop. The platform remained empty. No one seemed to notice its arrival. The train sat silently on the tracks. Its windows were dark. They seemed to absorb the station's light. The air grew cold. A sense of unease settled over the few who noticed it. Whispers began to circulate. People spoke of the train in hushed tones. Some called it a phantom. Others said it was a gateway to another realm. No one dared to approach it. Its presence was unsettling. It was as if it was watching, waiting for something. Thomas was different. He was a man of logic and reason. He scoffed at superstition. He refused to believe the rumors surrounding the train. One night, curiosity got the better of him. He decided to see for himself. As the clock struck 12, Thomas walked towards the train. His heart pounded in his chest. He stepped inside. The doors hissed shut behind him. Thomas was plunged into darkness. The train lurched forward, beginning its journey into the unknown. The train rattled through the tunnels. The only light came from a flickering bulb above. The carriage was empty. Thomas sat alone in the darkness. Time seemed to lose all meaning. Minutes felt like hours. The train showed no signs of slowing down. Thomas felt a knot of fear in his stomach. He tried to open the doors. They wouldn't budge. He was trapped. The train continued on its relentless journey. Where was it taking him? The next morning, the train was gone. There was no trace of it. People who had seen Thomas board it were baffled. He had vanished without a trace. Days turned into weeks. The memory of the train faded. The whispers died down. Life returned to normal. But the mystery of the train and its missing passenger remained. Then the dreams started. Section 6. Dreams of the Vanished. In the quiet, eerie hours of the night when the world seemed to hold its breath, a strange phenomenon began to unfold. People from all walks of life, from different corners of the world, started experiencing the same unsettling dreams. These dreams were not just fleeting images or random sequences. They were vivid, almost tangible experiences that left the dreamers profoundly disturbed. People began having vivid dreams. They found themselves in a dark, foggy forest, the air thick with an unspoken dread. The silence was occasionally broken by the distant, haunting sound of a train whistle. As they wandered through the forest, they would come across an old, abandoned train station bathed in the cold, silver light of the moon. They dreamt of a dark train, rattling through endless tunnels. The train seemed to be on an eternal journey, moving through landscapes that were both familiar and alien. The tunnels were not just physical structures, but seemed to represent the depths of the subconscious, a place where forgotten memories and hidden fears resided. And in their dreams they saw the faces of those who had boarded the midnight train. These faces were not just random strangers. They were people who had vanished without a trace, their disappearances shrouded in mystery. The dreamers could feel the sorrow and despair of these lost souls, as if they were reaching out for help from the other side. The dreamers would wake up in a cold sweat. The dreams felt real. The sensation of the train's movement, the coldness of the night air, the haunting faces. They all lingered long after waking. It was as if they had actually been on that train, experiencing the journey firsthand. They couldn't shake off the feeling of unease. The dreams left a mark on their psyche, a lingering sense of dread that colored their waking hours. They found themselves constantly looking over their shoulders, expecting to see the ghostly train or the faces of the vanished. They couldn't understand why they were dreaming of people they didn't know. The faces in the dreams were unfamiliar, yet there was a strange sense of recognition, as if they had known these people in another life or another time. This only added to their confusion and fear. The dream spread like a virus. It wasn't long before more and more people started having the same dreams. Entire communities were affected, with people sharing their experiences and realizing the eerie similarities. The phenomenon became a topic of widespread discussion, with experts and lay people alike trying to make sense of it. More and more people were affected. The dream seemed to transcend boundaries, affecting people of all ages, backgrounds, and cultures. The shared experience created a sense of unity, but also a collective anxiety. What did these dreams mean? Why were they happening now? The line between dreams and reality began to blur. People started questioning their own sanity, wondering if they were still dreaming even when they were awake. The world took on a surreal quality, with the boundaries between the conscious and the subconscious becoming increasingly porous. The mystery of the midnight train was back. It was as if the train had returned from the depths of time, bringing with it the secrets of the vanished. The dreamers felt a compulsion to uncover the truth, to find out what had happened to those who had boarded the midnight train and why they were now haunting their dreams. Section 7. A familiar face. One night a young woman named Alice had a dream. It wasn't just any dream. It was vivid and unsettling, the kind that lingers long after you wake up. Alice had always been a vivid dreamer, but this one felt different. It felt real, almost as if she was living another life in her sleep. She dreamt of the train. It was an old, vintage locomotive chugging through a dark and desolate landscape. The moonlight cast eerie shadows, making the scene even more haunting. The train's whistle echoed in the night, a sound that seemed to pierce through her very soul. She saw the faces of the missing people. They appeared one by one, their ghostly visages floating in the air around her. Each face told a story of despair and longing, their eyes pleading for help. Alice recognized some of them from the news, stories of people who had vanished without a trace. And then she saw him, Thomas. He looked different. His face was gaunt, his cheeks hollowed out as if he hadn't eaten in days. Thomas had been her childhood friend, someone she had lost touch with over the years. Seeing him like this in such a state filled her with a deep sense of dread. His eyes were filled with a deep sadness. They were the eyes of someone who had seen too much, who had suffered beyond measure. Tears welled up in his eyes, but they never fell. It was as if he was trapped in a perpetual state of sorrow, unable to find release. He reached out to her, his mouth moving, but no sound came out. It was as if he was trying to communicate something important, something urgent, but the words were lost in the void. Alice strained to hear, to understand, but it was no use. The silence was deafening. Alice woke up with a gasp. Her heart was pounding, her body drenched in sweat. The room was dark, the only light coming from the moon outside her window. She sat up, trying to catch her breath, the images from the dream still vivid in her mind. She couldn't shake the feeling that Thomas was trying to tell her something. The dream had felt so real, so urgent. She got out of bed and walked to the window, looking out into the night. The city was quiet, the streets empty, but in her mind the train's whistle still echoed. She decided to find out what happened to him. She couldn't ignore the dream, couldn't dismiss it as just a figment of her imagination. Thomas needed her, and she was determined to help. She started researching, looking up old news articles, trying to piece together the puzzle. She had to unravel the mystery of the midnight train. It was the key to everything. She was sure of it. The train held the answers, and she was determined to find them, no matter where the journey took her. Section 8. Searching for answers. Alice began her investigation. She talked to people who had seen the train. She listened to their stories. She collected every scrap of information she could find. She discovered that the train had been appearing for decades, always at midnight, always empty, always taking its passengers to an unknown destination. Alice felt a growing sense of dread. She realized that the train was more than just a mystery. It was a threat, and she was determined to stop it. Section 9. The train's true purpose? Alice's investigation led her to a hidden message board. It was tucked away in a forgotten corner of the old train station, covered in dust and cobwebs. The messages were cryptic, filled with symbols and codes that seemed to hint at something much larger. She spent hours deciphering them, piecing together the fragments of a story that was both fascinating and terrifying. Each message seemed to be a cry for help, a plea from those who had encountered the mysterious train and never returned. The more she read, the more she realized that this was no ordinary train. It was a vessel of secrets, a conduit for something otherworldly. People shared their dreams about the train. They were all connected. They were all trapped. But why? The train appeared again. It was as if the train had a mind of its own, drawing people into its enigmatic journey. The dreams were vivid, almost too real, and they all pointed to the same conclusion. The train was a gateway to another dimension, another reality. The people who had these dreams were not just passengers. They were chosen for a purpose that was still unclear. The train's reappearance was a signal a call to those who were meant to uncover its secrets. Alice knew she had to act fast. Time was running out, and the train's next departure was imminent. She gathered her notes, her research, and her courage. This was her chance to find the answers she had been seeking. She couldn't afford to hesitate. Every second counted. She mapped out her plan meticulously, knowing that one wrong move could mean the difference between success and failure. Her determination was unwavering, fueled by the stories of those who had vanished and the hope that she could bring them back. She boarded the train, ready to confront the unknown. The doors slid shut. The journey began. The atmosphere inside the train was thick with anticipation and dread. Every creak of the wheels, every flicker of the lights seemed to whisper secrets. Alice felt a chill run down her spine as she took her seat. She was not just a passenger, she was an investigator, a seeker of truth. The train's interior was unlike any she had seen before, filled with strange symbols and artifacts that hinted at its true nature. She knew that this journey would change her forever. The train plunged into darkness. Alice was alone. Or was she? The silence was deafening, broken only by the distant hum of the train's engine. She could feel eyes on her, watching, waiting. The darkness seemed to pulse with a life of its own, hiding secrets that were just out of reach. Alice's heart pounded in her chest as she strained to see through the inky blackness. She knew that she was not truly alone. There were others here, unseen but present, guiding her towards the truth. The air was thick with tension, and every shadow seemed to hold a hidden danger. The mystery of the midnight train was about to be revealed. Alice could feel it in her bones. The train was more than just a mode of transportation. It was a key, a puzzle, a riddle waiting to be solved. She gazed out the window, watching the landscape blur past, knowing that each passing moment brought her closer to the answers she sought. The anticipation was almost unbearable, a mix of fear and excitement that kept her on edge. She was ready for whatever came next, determined to uncover the train's true purpose. But what would that revelation bring? The possibilities were endless, each more daunting than the last. Would she find the missing passengers? Would she uncover a truth that was too terrible to comprehend? Or would she become another lost soul, trapped in the train's endless journey? The weight of these questions pressed down on her, but she knew she had to see it through. The train held the answers, and she was determined to find them, no matter the cost. The journey was far from over, and the true purpose of the train was still shrouded in mystery.